Howdy folks, I'm Joss, and welcome back to GregTech New Horizon. In between episodes, I've done some exploring. I found a dungeon to the east of the starter base where I got a bunch of loot and only died like 5 times. Anyway, this is all of the loot that we got from our adventures, and it is quite a bit. I think the most useful things that I found were these 2 backpacks. The miner's backpack can hold 15 stacks of ore or mining resources, and the backpack is just 36 more inventory slots, which is also how I managed to get most of this back. First things first, I am going to organize all of this into my chests. Now that everything is a little more organized in here, it is time to look at some quests. Before we move forward, I am going to look back and I'm going to try and tidy up some of these other little quests. So we're going to need to make barbecue gloves, broadsword, throwing knife, spruce and jungle sapling, punji stick, paperbark sapling, a short bow and some arrows, some toast, mud armor, wood armor, leather armor, great wood saplings, and great wood logs. Oh, what is this? The scrolls foretold that crimson moon of heroes' bane and monsters' boon. Its restless shadow stains the night and drains the warding of the light. Blood will spill unless you know to seek thine solace deep below. I checked the wiki. It's a blood moon. It lets monsters spawn closer to the player and you can't sleep through it, and it kind of sucks, but you can just go mining and be totally fine. Anyway, here's a summary of what it's like to play GregTech. I think the next thing that I need to do is down here all of the different mining quests. So I went down to do a bit of mining, and then purely by chance, as I was chasing this down to some mobs, I found a stronghold. I explored that for a little bit, nearly died. There were some pretty scary mobs, so I don't really think I'm ready for dungeons, and I'm definitely not ready for the end, but it's good to know where it is for when that time comes. And then I mined for like 5 straight hours. Okay, it is currently 3 a.m. I have spent the last few hours digging down to find the ores all around my base. I did a 6x9 chunk area. Nice. And I feel like I found most things. I'm gonna go to bed, and then tomorrow we're going to evolve. If you want to make ladders, you might think you can just put a bunch of sticks together, but that gives you a pile of sticks. There's nothing wrong with a pile of sticks. I'm in love with a pile of sticks, but that isn't going to help us here. We need tools. In the GregTech early game, there are a handful of tools that you need to craft pretty much everything you might want to. The most useful ones, which I'm crafting right now, are the hammer, the wrench, the file, the screwdriver, and the saw. These tools unlock a lot of new and very useful gadgets that are going to make my life a lot easier. Unfortunately, they all have limited durability, so we're going to go through a lot of them getting into and through the Steam Age. But before we do any of that, I need to expand the base and upgrade my tools. We are running out of room and moving way too slow. take a look at it from outside. Wow, this looks like dog shit. Ignore how it looks terrible at the moment. I'm gonna work on that. Don't pay attention to the exterior. On the interior, I've got a little zone in here, my bed, my first trophy. Down here, I have a storage room with a bunch of tools and crafting and stuff. Over here, I have all of my Tinker's Construct stuff. I'm gonna have to go and gather a bunch more materials, I think. But before I do that, I am going to repair some of my tools and then use some of this redstone that I've processed to upgrade them a little. We've found a few tool part upgrades and chests, but I want the best tools possible at this point in the game. As we've been mining with the pickaxe and digging with the shovel, they've been gaining XP and unlocking new modifier slots. Each modifier is like a different enchantment that can be added to a tool in exchange for just a bunch of resources. Redstone makes the tool faster, lapis increases the number of drops, quartz makes weapons sharper. There's a ton of options, but applying the resources also takes a long time and a lot of clicking. Also, yes, it makes that sound every time. To upgrade the tools more, we're going to need a smeltery, which will allow us to cast tool parts out of stronger and faster materials. Sand and clay turn into grout, which can be crafted into an unfired brick and smelted into a seared brick. Drain some more natural resources and we can make seared bricks, then turn those into a controller, a couple tanks, some casting channels and faucets, 2 drains, and a casting basin. Okay, it is the next day. I have my lava tanks, but no lava. I'm gonna grab another bucket and I'm gonna go down no, I'm gonna get some slabs so I don't have to jump. Part of the way there. Hey, it's better than nothing. So I filled the tanks with lava and then worked out that if I just put the lava tanks in my backpack, that I didn't have to worry about holding them to avoid getting burned, because they could be, I guess, protected within the leather of my knapsack. That should be fully going. We are smelting cobblestone. I am going to need to craft some stone tool parts, make some brass, cast some tool molds, and cast some new tool parts. With my pickaxe fully repaired, I can replace the head of it with my new bronze one, which is going to increase the mining level and also increase the durability. And so, let the upgrading commence. If I make a paper binding and add it to a tool, it's going to give me additional modifiers. While I was exploring, I found a little bit of cobalt, so I melted that down and used it to make tool rods, which will increase our durability even further. And then with the modifier that I added with that paper binding, I can add a diamond to add another 500 durability, setting me up perfectly to collect a bunch of obsidian. Then I can melt some down for alloys and tool parts. Honestly, at this point, I don't know if I'm improving the durability on any of these any further. I think I just got excited. But I also put emeralds on my tools, which gives an additional 50% durability. And then I went to the nether in search of quartz. Thankfully, it was right behind my portal, so I just gathered up a bunch of that and then went back home to process it. Once the quartz was smelted, I added a lot of it to my sword, and we were done. Okay, so I have upgraded my tools almost as much as I can. I'm just waiting for the quartz to finish smelting. And I've also finished almost every quest in the Stone Age, so I think it's time we jump into the Steam Age. By now, I think I have most of the ingredients needed to make my first coal boiler. Yeah, there we go. Now, I think I just need to claim that quest, and we should be in the Steam Age. Okay, here's where we're at. Because this episode is about tools, I want to rush through the rest of the Steam age to get to here, so that I can make the tool forge. However, this is going to require steel, which would normally mean I have to go and gather a bunch of resources using the shitty tools that I have now to make a bricked blast furnace. Instead, I think I can rush through the rest of the Steam age and use the little bit of steel I've found to make the tool forge, which I can then use to make tools that will let me break multiple blocks at a time. So, let's get started. Observe this simple town. These villagers tend to their fields, socialize throughout the day, and rest through perilous nights. However, the call of innovation never stays quiet for long. The potential for expansion and automation has made its way to this once quaint homestead. Using the heat-resistant properties of bronze alloy, tinkerers have constructed new devices capable of harnessing the power of boiled water. As the clang of machinery and the hiss of steam fills the air, brassy boxes crushing and cooking and compacting, one thing is for certain: Joss.jpg's starter village house is undoubtedly an industry on the rise. Anyway, now that that's all done, we can melt down zinc, steel, and obsidian to make obsidianite, which we're going to need to make the tool forge. We're also going to need to use those patterns to make new stone tool parts, which we can then cast with brass to make tool part casts. So I made and organized all of those while I waited for the obsidian to melt down so that I could make the 2 obsidianite plates that I'm going to need to make the tool forge. With those, I can pick up my tool station, saw it and a piece of seared stone in half, and use them to create the tool forge. The tool forge unlocks a bunch of new and improved tools, so I made a bronze hammerhead, an obsidian large plate, an obsidianite large plate, and an iron tough tool rod, and combined them to make myself a hammer. For the tool parts for the other tools, I'm going to try and use netherrack. Netherrack tool parts are bad, but because netherrack is so easy to get, all these tools will be super easy to repair. I made a lumber axe, an excavator, and a scythe, which I can upgrade with better tool parts after I've done some mindless leveling. The lumber axe can chop down a whole tree at once, which means it's easy to level up with some good old-fashioned deforestation. I had to take a ton of breaks to stop and repair the tool because it had such low durability, but I leveled up the axe a ton and lost all willpower to do the same for my excavator and scythe. Oh, also I made a crossbow and some arrows and stuff because the quest asked me to. That's not important. It's several hours later. I'm still feeling pretty sick, but I'm hopped up on over-the-counter medication, so I've been doing some grinding. I destroyed the roguelike dungeon that had previously destroyed me to gather bricks, used my new hammer to gather a bunch of terracotta, my excavator to gather up sand, and my steam macerator to crush the terracotta and bricks into clay dust and brick dust. I can craft those together to make fire clay dust, which I can then throw in the compressor to make compressed fire clay. Chuck it in the furnace, and I get fire bricks. I mined up some gypsum and put it through the macerator twice to get crushed gypsum ore and impure piles of gypsum dust. I can take those out to the cauldron to wash them and get piles of gypsum dust. With all of those together. Ew, I thought that was a water bucket. Oh no. I'm gonna have to make buckets of concrete, so let's do that. I started by gathering calcite, but then just mined out the whole lapis vein. I ground some of it down using the macerator, but I got impatient, so I used a hammer. I washed it, and then I could finally make my first buckets of concrete and my first fire bricks. Really, after that, I was just doing the same thing over and over again, filling up water buckets, moving ingredients around in the work table, which thankfully holds ingredients and recipes, then placing down blast furnace bricks. Crafting the bricked blast furnace freed me a little from the time loop, but then, like Palpatine, the deja vu returned. I cut a lot of it out. And then finally, I got my bricked up blast furnace to start making my own steel. For the last part of the video, I wanted to make a healing axe, which is going to mean I no longer have to worry about food, but is also going to take a bit of exploring, which I was maybe not as prepared for as I hoped. That is unfortunate. I feel like I got 2 hit there. The first thing I need to make a healing axe is an enchanting table. The recipe to craft being way beyond me, I had to find one, and I just got really lucky. I mean, like, this looks like I planned it, but I promise you it was just luck. I'd also need a division sigil, which you can either find in chests or get by killing the Wither. Because I was being continuously killed in the roguelike dungeons, I decided to try my hand at loot games, which you can find buried around the world and will either be Minesweeper or a memory game. Unfortunately for me, I'm really stupid and bad at Minesweeper. Thankfully, I have a husband who is very autistic about it, so I made him. He offered to play a lot of Minesweeper. Honestly, I had to stop him from playing Minesweeper so that I could make progress in the mod pack. That man loved it, and he found some great stuff. Those rubber bars and this silky jewel are going to be very, very useful very shortly. And then when I finished watching my YouTube video and wanted to play again, I went back to unsuccessfully raiding roguelike dungeons and dying again. I used that time to make myself a backup pickaxe so that I wouldn't have to punch through the stone to get back to my grave. I also put a ball of moss on my pickaxe so it would repair itself naturally, and then spent a lot more time unsuccessfully looking for a division sigil. I used some of my newly made steel for some new gadgets, like a hang glider for gliding and some piston boots to let me jump higher, and then I used them to really just perfectly execute a water bucket clutch because I'm a pro. Fuck. There we go. I didn't find a division sigil, but I did find a wither skeleton skull in the wall, and then I picked another one up that a mob dropped a little later on. 2 out of 3 ain't bad, but it's also not a wither, so I used some parts that I found and a couple of iron tough rods to make an obsidian cleaver, which does a really good job at separating the neck from the head. I maybe killed 2 more wither skeletons before I got my 3rd and final wither skeleton skull. That meant it was wither fighting time. I tried to cheese it by going up to the roof of the nether, but the wither just kind of flew through it, so I loaded it back up. The next time I went down underground so it couldn't go onto the nether roof. I summoned it, I killed it, and I discovered a bug. The bug report didn't say what was causing it, but I worked out that it was because I used a Tinker's Construct sword instead of a vanilla sword. I added my findings to the bug report and loaded it back up. Finally, I went underground, I built a wither, and then I killed it with a regular old iron sword. And with that, I got the division sigil. Back above ground, I led a cow over to the enchanting table, which I'd placed on the grass and surrounded with redstone. Midnight grew ever closer, so I knocked out the lights in the area and then got ready to perform the ritual to activate the sigil. Not only did that little murder activate the division sigil in my hotbar, it also gave me a bunch of cursed earth, which makes mobs spawn very, very quickly. Well, that Enderman got cow revenge. I need a couple obsidian sticks to make the healing axe, and then I can use the division sigil to divide a diamond by iron to make some unstable ingots. These are supposed to explode and kill you after 10 seconds, but for whatever reason that didn't happen to me, so crafting the healing axe was a piece of cake. I can also use those unstable ingots to make the Builder's Wand and the Super Builder's Wand, which, as you might have guessed, are gonna make building a lot easier in the future. As you might be able to tell by the fact that it's day 340, it is a little bit while later. I have been doing some grinding while I have been editing this episode, and I wanted to check in before we wrap this up to show off the tools that I currently have. I have full obsidianite basic gear, plus steel crossbow. The healing axe has meant that I haven't needed to eat. I don't have any food in my inventory. I have steel armor. I've made a sleeping bag so I can sleep on the go. I've got my wrench and a water bucket always prepared. I've still got my pizza gloves on, and I have my obsidianite bolts in the quiver slot. Then down the end I also have 4 backpacks. I have joss.exe, which is all of the stuff that I need to keep going. I have the full tools, again, obsidianite, fully upgraded, steam age tools. I also have a silk touch pickaxe. I made a scythe, which is great for harvesting. I also have a dedicated bag for loot, and then 2 additional backpacks. I can also show you where the base is at currently. So I have expanded it out a little bit, and I'll give you a bit of a tour before we wrap up here. I finally made a little stall outside for my horse. inside is about the same. I turned this area down here into a kitchen. I'm going to get into that a little bit more in the next episode. You don't need to worry too much. This area is pretty much the same. Up on the next floor, I have upgraded all of the machines to high pressure machines, so they are chipping away. My steam tank is full. I've still got a couple of empty rooms in the roofs as well, so I could very easily keep expanding here. I expanded my coke oven, my smeltery. I have 2 blast furnaces, which are making a lot of steel and also making a lot of pollution. That might be something we have to deal with a little bit in the next episode. That is gonna do it for this episode, though. Hey, thank you for watching. This has been a blast. I've had a lot of fun and learned a lot of things. I'm excited to carry on into the future and expand into the steam age and finally start making some electricity with ultra low voltage or low voltage. I'm not sure what's next. We'll find out together next time. So I'll see you then. Like, subscribe. You've been on YouTube before. You get it. Goodbye.